Hi, dear friends. I am so thrilled to have my good friend Paul Edge on the podcast and on my YouTube channel with an incredibly practical and exciting topic on how water affects our consciousness, how consciousness affects water, and water is relational. We started this conversation last interview that was dedicated to frequency. Paul came to my podcast and just blew everybody's mind into a new level of expansion. And so many of my viewers were excited to have you back, Paul. Thank you so much for being with us again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So I am curious, what actually brought you into researching water and research and understanding water as an entity, as a being, right? As something we can have a relationship with.
I think I've always had dolphins around me, so kind of that. I grew up by the beach in England, and so water has always been a pretty important part of who I am. And then I discovered it was actually who I am, and then I realized that it was actually who everybody else is, and everything else on the planet is. And so, as she called me, I responded and have really disappeared down a rabbit hole now that is just changing everything as I knew it, and in time, as hopefully with the wonderful people I've got working with me on this project, how humans, change humans. And so, we've in order to accept this proposition, proposition, whatever, I do think it's fair for me to say that I believe water is a quantum being, our direct connection to source. So anything I say is framed from that perspective. And what I'm doing now is basically I'm actually putting together a data set that poses questions that science can't answer, but spirituality can.
I'm going to take some things that you named and highlight what I received. You said water is a quantum being that connects us to source. Wow. Thank you. This is what I experience on every walk that I take to the ocean, and I invoke the spirit of the ocean, and I make my flower offerings. And I have that very personal relationship with that quantum being. This is incredible. And direct connection to source. Can you expand on that, Paul?
Yeah. So a lot of this philosophy is based around Buddhist teachings and Gnostic teachings. Probably Gnostics have been the most influential for me. I mean, there's a lot of ancient beliefs that have been influential, but the Gnostics say all liquid on the planet is the tears of Sophia. And in that metaphor, if it comes from Sophia, the Aeon Sophia, then that's our connection. And so, as we move forward, through this conversation, some of the things that have been discovered actually validate the Gnostic teachings and the Buddhist teachings as well, ironically. And we had the monks here for 7 days in April, and I said, look, the Dalai Lama put out a call many months or years ago. There's nothing wrong with Buddhism, but Buddhism is a science, and perhaps people should start treating it as such. And that's what I'm doing by bringing it into the realm of water, because every day my mind is blown, and I've seen a lot of stuff, and it's just blown. Just there's no other word for it. It's just what, how, why, what, where, who is doing this? Because it's not me.
Every water that exists on the planet, tears of Sophia, the great goddess of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, how incredible. And going back to that, we are mostly water, Paul. How does that empower? How does that knowledge can empower us, especially right now with a lot of change on the planet? And what I am tracking in the field, there's a lot of people are struggling to keep their sense of clarity or navigation of their path, or a sense of empowerment and trusting that they are capable to meet what is unfolding, right, with clarity and trust and confidence and self-empowerment. So how does knowing that we are mostly water is our connection to source, how can it help people in a very practical way?
Oh, that's a rabbit hole that we could spend the next 20 years discussing. I think perhaps, again, going back to the Gnostic warnings, which is that the demiurge, or Yalboeath, or however you pronounce his name, I just call him the demiurge, and the archons interfere with humanity using what they call as the mind parasite. I, as you know, I'm an advanced Ericksonian hypnotist. I'm a master hypnotist, master NLP practitioner. And for 3 years, I developed a program called Code Zero. And one of the things that we focused on within that was, well, it was two things actually: the voice and patterns. And where do patterns come from? If you take the very, very simple premise that at essence humans are perfect. So we've got perfection, and we've got where we are right now. Something's got in the way of that.
Yes.
You know, there is a paradigm, and this is actually part of the fake narrative. So the Gnostics referred to the demiurge as the counterfeiting spirit. One example that is becoming very, very obvious is, what was the name of the first robot given human citizenship in 2016? Do you know that?
Is it Sophia? Yeah.
The fake Sophia. And so this is why people, in my opinion, including, you know, I go through this every day, are discombobulated, because we're actually battling a war between what is real and what is fake. And the water is real, but the influence is fake. And one of the things that we see with as you can see in the background, there's a mandala there that's actually created by a Jimi Hendrix track. And this is something that I'm working 18 hours a day on right now. One of the things we see in we see a lot of repeating patterns in every single track. But the more successful the track, the more there is, how shall we say, a recurring image. And what does that mean? I don't know yet. I will be honest with you. I put that video on my timeline yesterday. That's no manipulation. There are hundreds of those faces in that track, but they occur in order to study. We're filming currently at 60 frames per second. We intend to go up to 20,000 frames per second in order for the medical aspect. Those single images were 1/30th of a second. Now think about that. To the naked eye, those images do not exist. But when you break them down and study the frames, that there are deep structured conversations, not all necessarily harmful, but there are deep structured conversations in frequency that the human eye can only perceive 24 frames per second. We're looking at stuff in 60 frames per second. And we're looking at it one frame at a time. So I go for that track that those images came from, that was 28,000 frames. I went through every single frame individually. And people who are, they're discombobulated because there is interference. That is completely, that's irrefutable at this point. Where is the interference coming from? I don't know. I have no idea, but it's there. Every single track has the same imagery. Even the Buddhist monks who created the most beautiful mandalas with their singing in their prayers, and I sent you morning prayer as an example on Vimeo, they're still interference. These are the most spiritual beings probably on the planet, and there's still interference. So the average person has to understand that the patterns that every coach talks about are identifiable, but they're also incredibly cunning, and they have a way of disguising themselves, just like bad code. I call it, it's all 7 computer viruses rolled into one. Polymorphic, semantic, boot sector, direct action. There's so many there, and what you're seeing is water is basically, they are replicating within water, just like those images, just like those frames are recorded within water. And for us, the simplest question I ask is this real or is this fake? And I let my unconscious answer it. I do not let my brain answer that question ever. Thoughts aren't thinking. I hope that answered it. Probably not, but here you go.
I take in every word that you share, because it's to me it feels so aligned with everything that I've been discovering on my path. You know, I go through this more shamanic way of accessing this, and you actually go and do these incredible experiments with the technology and with your background of Ericksonian therapy, right? Hypnosis. So interference. So how do we, what you're discovering, what you're doing with water, with that instrument, with the music, what are you aiming to bring forth that hasn't been done before yet, Paul?
There's a lot. For example, one of the biggest fears is the domination of AI. Yes. Well, I've already done this. I can demonstrate that the AI version of my voice and the real voice, water can distinguish it. Even though the sound wave looks identical on the computer, even though it sounds identical, when you play it to the water knows the difference. Mm. And that's demonstrable. It's irrefutable at this point. I've got all the images, and it's just like fake, real, fake, real, fake, real. So there is a knowing. Again, the Gnostics refer to this. They call it the epinoia. The epinoia was hidden in Anthropos, us, so that the archons could not find her. I talk about this a lot. Not him, not it, her. Very specific. Where does the epinoia come from? Sophia. Now, this is all metaphor, I get it. But the point is, every human being has access to that infinite wisdom. But it's not up there, it's in there.
Mm-hmm. In the heart.
It's somewhere. We don't know where it is. That's the problem. Neuroscientists will tell you, oh yeah, the unconscious exists. Well, where is it? We don't know. It's the same. Well, why does hot water freeze quicker than cold water? We don't know. It's the same answer from science. We don't know, we don't know, we don't know. But it doesn't mean it's not real.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm. So maybe this is the good moment for us to dive into the power of music to heal us or to make us sick.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, again, what we are showing is water. So I've done probably, I've done the Doors, Hendrix, Fleetwood Mac, some hip hop, Prophet Party. So I've gone the full spectrum. And that's just the start. We are seeing recurring images every single time. But guess what? And you can look this up online. It's called 666 Clubhouse by Prophet Posse. If you listen to the words, it's an aggressive track. It's a scary track for some people, especially in our community who like guns and everything. They're talking about chopping people up into itty bitty pieces. And yet the imagery is the most beautiful you will see. Why? Because water, and this is the huge breakthrough that I've had in the last 2 weeks, which I'm still, water doesn't care about the words. It doesn't actually care that much about the music. What it cares about is the subtle energy and intention of the artist.
Wow, that is a big breakthrough you just unveiled for all of us. I was taking notes. Water doesn't care. It doesn't care. She only cares about intention.
Yes, that's it. And that is it's subtle energy. We've got it all wrong. We've been looking at it all wrong. Now, am I the first person to say this? Absolutely not. Of course not. But what I am able to do is demonstrate it.
Oh my goodness. I'm having a breakthrough right now, because when I think about one of the inspiring teachers who brought us Gene Keys, Richard Roth, he always talks about the intention with which you start any creative project is what is going to carry through the project, right? So if your intention is filled with fear or anxiety or pressure, it's going to carry through it. But if your intention is to serve the will of the whole, is to really to be of service, that is an intention that is always supported by the whole. So it just brought me to that moment of awareness. It's not the words, it's intention. Really deep.
We can go back to the Prophet Posse track. If you listen to it on a surface structure, it's a song about violence and revenge. If you listen to it on a deep structure, it's the artist expressing their world as they live it. That's truth. We may not like that. We may not like how they express it. That's music. What there is no denying is that the intention, the truth within the piece is picked up by the water. And that's what we're saying. This is about subtle energy. Everything else goes out the window at that point. It's the same with Hendrix. It's the same with my music. It's the same with the Fleetwood Mac stuff. You can literally, I'll give you one example. I did a rework for CSI of Stone Temple Pilots' Sex Type thing. Now, people get that track wrong. It's actually, Scott Weiland it's a very anti-date rape track. People listen to it and think, oh, it's about someone in a club. No, it's actually a damning statement on the abuse of women in date rape situations. That's what it's about. But what we noticed was an image come in. So I thought, okay, this is occurring at pretty much equidistance. So I went back through the frames and realized there's a message marked in classic Ericksonian style within the song. And the first 6 words are, I am philosophy, you know. First 5 words, I am philosophy, you know. That's when the image appears. Philosophy, philosophia, love of Sophia. And what was the song really about? It was about protecting women in dangerous situations. Erickson was a master of this. You could talk to him and your words meant nothing to him. They meant something, obviously, but he was able to identify the real problems just by listening to the intonation in the voice. And he would create a deep structure narrative out of how I would be speaking. He would be going, okay, that. But he was a freak and a genius, and just, the world owes so much to Milton Erickson. What water is actually doing is validating what Erickson was doing instinctively. We are seeing messages over and over again, anchored by the artists. We are seeing images that reveal the artist's true state of mind. Landslide is a classic example. I didn't know the situation around landslide until I started seeing the images and went, oh, what's going on here? Something's wrong. and so yeah, it's the subtle energy. And water is carrying that through. And if you're not aware of that, then guess what? Your water will copy it.
Mm.
So we're very quick to decide what is good music and what is bad music. But believe it or not, what we perceive as good music could actually be bad music. And bad in a way of not musically perfect. There's lots of tracks that are musically perfect. But if the lead singer or one of the band members were not in a healthy place, guess what? That's now encoded in the track.
Wow. I foresee working out at the gym with no music for at least a week.
Absolutely. There's a wonderful book, Meditation Saved My Life, by Guru Rinpoche, I think it is.
Meditation saved my life.
It's such an incredible read.
I'm getting it.
Yeah. And again, what does the Buddha teach? Silence. When you look at cymatics, which is, you'll see all the Mandelas online and everything, those are all produced at a low frequency. They're not produced at a high frequency. So the lower you go, and I'm still trying to figure this one out. However, I think that, sound healers are not going to like me saying this. I had a long discussion with one on Saturday, and he actually said, oh, that makes sense. Sound doesn't heal, it relaxes. Relaxation leads to healing.
I'm taking notes.
Mm-hmm.
Can you expand on that, Paul? Relaxation.
Yeah,
Healing.
So there's a thing called the ultradian healing response. And it was, again, back to Erickson, they realized that Erickson would make appointments for an hour, and then 2 hours later, he'd walk out of his office. And so Ernest Rossi, I think it was, said, why do your appointments always take 2 hours? And he just shrugged his shoulders and said, I don't know, it just feels right. So, of course, knowing Erickson, Rossi wrote a book called The 20-Minute Miracle. And what they discovered is the ultradian healing response. And funnily enough, I was talking to a brilliant neuroscientist from MIT, and I mentioned the ultradian healing response, and he said, you know about that? I said, oh, absolutely. And he's like, no one knows about the ultradian healing response. And I'm like, well, Ericksonian practitioners should know. And what they discovered was, after an hour, and every coach, by the way, I hope you're listening to this, every musician, I hope you're listening to this, after an hour, if you cease what you are doing, your client is in the peak stress response. What Erickson discovered was at 100 minutes, he shut up. And that's what is known as the ultradian healing response. And it occurs in silence, 20 minutes every 2 hours. And yes, coaches, that does mean you can charge for 2 hours. But you've got to shut up after 100 minutes.
Immediately implementing this.
And it's quite remarkable. Code Zero was always 2 hour appointments. I didn't know why, it just was until I discovered this. And what would happen is at around about 100 minutes, and even as a DJ, my DJ sets were 90 to 100 minutes, and then I'd stop. There is this pattern there. It's like 20 minutes of silence that all the magic happens, and we don't do anything. We're not needed at that point. Our job, my job, musician's job, is to get people to that state, and then surrender to the power of the unconscious, because she will do that. She will be so grateful that you got those people to that point where she could now step in and begin to heal people. This is not magic, it's science.
I love that. It reminds me of a session I had with one of the elders that I learned from. And after she asked me several questions, she actually invited me to sit in silence and eye gaze together, and allowing the wisdom to emerge from the field. And it was one of the most transformative experiences of my life. Some part of it was very confronting to sit and look into the eyes and allow and empty and empty and empty. So this is very powerful to hear your angle on that and your share. Amazing. Thank you.
But how does this tie in with water? Well, I have to shut down the water experiments every 100 minutes. If I try and push the water past 100 minutes, oh my gosh, it's like trying to teach my cat to do something I want her to do. It's like chaos. No, I'm not doing this anymore. But if I shut it down at 100 and then give the water 20 minutes and then restart, guess what? Now the images get better. Now we're getting more clarity. The minute and if we are human beings, and I say this to employers, give your staff a break every 100 minutes for 20 minutes, and you watch their productivity go through the roof. It's far more effective than giving them 20 minutes in the morning, an hour for lunch, and 20 minutes in the afternoon. Because the hour for lunch actually leaves them in a heightened stress response when they come back to work. So, sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, the 100, you said 110 minutes?
100 minutes out of every 2 hours. And you can actually buy, I think we spoke about Jack Cruz last time, you can actually really, really fine tune this by saying to your clients, get up at 6 when the sun rises. Now you're setting your body clock as well in perfect time, which it makes it a lot easier to figure out when each 2 hour cycle works. One of the things that my dear friend John Lewis, who has a he's a PhD scientist from Miami, and he has a very effective solution for Alzheimer's and neurodegenerative disease. But again, what is the protocol? Every 2 hours. And you start seeing this, oh gosh, this 2 hour cycle thing keeps coming. Well, again, one of the team working on the water with me is a former nuclear scientist called Jonathan Butts. He is observing the same thing. He builds industrial equipment, and he says, yes, after 2 hours, water will just shut everything down. So as humans, we need to go, okay, if water is telling us this, why are we pushing through for 8 hours when actually we should be doing 100 hours and then 20 minutes off? 100 hours, 100 minutes, then 20 minutes off. This is the conversation with water. This is what humans need to, in my opinion, need to start changing. It's this narrative. If you believe you're dealing with H2O, a simple molecule, go for it. But if you're dealing with a being, have the conversation. It's so important. I can't stress this enough, because the conversation will surprise you.
Wow, Paul, so enlightening, like always. Diving into such incredible topics. I'm curious specifically about water hypnosis that you are talking about. And maybe to give people a little bit more background and the context about the image that you have right there behind you that is glowing and magnetizing my attention. And yeah, and what are you creating that you are excited to expand and help the viewers to understand?
So when we listen to music, we listen to it with our ears. It's actually, I believe, the vagus nerve's first connection to the outside world is in the ear cavity, just so you know that. The question is, we are kinesthetic, auditory, gustatory, olfactory, and I missed one out, visual human beings. So does that image, and actually that image is really important because it occurs when Jimi Hendrix says dead. Now, it's an incredibly perfect Mandela. Why does it occur when he says dead? These are the questions. So what we are starting to realize is that the images go so deep, so beyond our perception. Staring at the Sri Yantra, I believe this is proven, will open up new neural pathways in the brain. Well, if we know what music does, then what will happen if we listen and stare at the images at the same time? Because we're not getting the visual information that is required. Oh, my TV's gone off. Carry on, sorry. We're not getting the visual information that is required in order for the full experience to happen. Mm. So when you go to a rave, you have music. I'm talking from my world now, clubs. You have music, but you have disconnected imagery. What happens when we put the two together? What happens when, like morning prayers, and what you will notice with morning prayers, because I'm noticing it and so is everybody else, what you watch the first time begins to morph and evolve over more and more days. Now, what's going on there? It's still the same recording. It's still the same video. No, your eyes, your body, everything is now taking the information from the screen as well as the information in the music and making it match and making it align. That's when we get power. That's when we get true healing, actually, because now it's a full messaging system. It's like the difference between an MP3 and a WAV file. The information sounds the same, yet the WAV file for a 5-minute track will be about 80 megabytes. The WAV file for the MP3 file will be about 10 megabytes. So even though it sounds the same, there's nearly 70 megabytes worth of information missing. What I am doing with this device and everything else is studying what is the information that we need as human beings in order to truly heal from music. Because we're not actually healing from the music. We're not healing from the visuals. We're healing from the information, the data that is contained there. That's the point that I am working on. And why, if water is picking up subtle energy, is there a way, for example, the female voice is 160 to 255 hertz. The male voice is 80 hertz to 155, or 65 hertz. Can frequency, this is another question. I mean, there's so many questions, honestly. I could probably just do a whole podcast on questions that I can't answer, quite frankly. Is there a way for us to become closer by listening to the frequencies we're missing rather than the frequencies we have? There's just so much here. I mean, I could spend the next 400 years just analyzing one set of images, quite frankly. So again, how do people heal? Listen to, one thing I would say is listen to Buddhist chants by monks who are fairly pure in nature. That would be a great way to do it. If you don't have a video, or we're not there to make this stuff commercially available yet. I mean, I can tell you that now. So what understanding the importance of the visual information from the audio file is really, really important. And this is it's just what I am being subjected to right now is overwhelming. Not in a bad way, in an absolutely beautiful way, because I have a very, very, very strict teacher who's going, I don't care if you're tired, learn. And that learning is now starting to make sense. For example, there is a consistent image through every track. It doesn't make sense why it's there unless it's a time signature. Now it makes sense. But if it's a time signature, we now have a potential avenue to anti-aging. That's where this rabbit hole goes, just so you know.
Wow. So inspiring to hear what you are trailblazing and finding, and all to support people to heal and to find sense of that inner clarity and inner wisdom, ultimately to guide people to find that inner gnosis, right? That inner wisdom.
Yeah, that's the most perfect word you could use right now, gnosis.
Gnosis, yes.
And understanding that, we beat ourselves up. Every human being does.
Oh.
It's, we all do. We call them patterns, or we call them challenges or limiting beliefs. Understanding that those limiting beliefs are merely lines of code that have been delivered to you by frequency. That is not good for you.
Mm-hmm.
And the good thing about that, and what should give every person on the planet hope, is just as when your computer gets a virus, you put virus software in, and the virus gets taken care of. That's kind of what we're doing. We're figuring out antivirus software for the human biocomputer.
Wow. Wow, incredible. Yes, when you sent me the morning prayers video, and I was listening, the impact of what I felt in my body. I haven't listened to it in nature just yet, but I'm gonna do it today.
You don't need to, because you got the video.
I've got the video. Oh, yes. So I can sit at home and listen and watch it.
Yeah, you don't need to. That's the point. Well, what I'm seeking to do is give people solutions whilst they're waiting for us to actually give them, available solutions. Is one aspect is to literally listen to, I would love to see more sound healers not do stuff in gyms or in homes, but actually to do sound healing in nature.
Yes. Yeah, here in California, there is a movement. People are doing it more and more because we have the weather to support
Well,
it.
that makes sense, logically.
Yeah,
So again, because we go back to the first statement I said, I made lots of statements, but in the first interview, water is a relationship being. She wants to have a relationship with you and with the world that she's created, not with the fake world that we have created.
Paul, would you share a practical way that we can work with the water that we drink? Is there a way to hypnotize this water in my glass?
I think you can't hypnotize. Well, hypnosis,
Program
hypnosis. Hypnosis is a very simple concept. Relax the body to the point where it will accept positive suggestions. That's it. There's lots of ways to do it, and there's lots of abuses of it and everything else. But true people who practice hypnosis as a valuable tool, also know when to get out of the way. And so, in respect of water, I still believe, and I'm going to plug a company because I know their technology is the best on the planet right now. And it's a company called Natural Action. And they have a portable device that will restructure your water for you. I use it. I have nothing to do with them. I don't get paid by them. It's just I know their technology works. And Jonathan, who's the CEO, is a very dear friend of mine and has been invaluable to this research. If you talk about giving your water suggestions in the morning, first of all, it has to be put into a relaxed state. Restructuring it is effectively that. So, I would highly recommend that anyone listening to this takes time to prepare their water, which is like doing hypnosis on the water, what I call hypnosis, which is basically putting someone into a very relaxed state where they will take suggestions. And then, just, if it was your mum and you were a child and you wanted something, what would you do? You'd ask. Ask. It's not difficult. She might not always say yes, but you know what? When she does, it's always exactly what you want. What I need and what I want are two completely different things.
Wow. Wow. I love that distinction about relaxed state. It's not something we do on the rush, on the go. Like and that's the thing, I really wanted to strip away these surface-based approaches to affecting our reality, such as, just say things and da, da, da. But like, how do you really make it impactful? Relaxed state, spend intentional time, imagine it's a mother, ask. Yes, that
Pretty much.
feels deeply aligned in my body. My body is a barometer of truth.
Yeah,
So,
again, funnily enough, I had this conversation with a former client just a week ago. And he asked me, and he's probably listening, and he'll probably go, "Oh, he's talking about me." Yes, I am. And he said, "Well, what if I play frequencies really quickly so I can't hear them? And will they go direct into my brain? Will I get what I want that way?" And I said, "Well, what are you playing?" "Affirmations." I said, "Are they true?" "No." "Well, now you're lying to your unconscious. Guess what's going to happen?" There's a wonderful prayer called St. Teresa's Prayer. And it starts off, and Code Zero was actually built around the steps in this prayer. And the opening line is, "May today there be peace within."
may the day begins with what?
May today there be peace within. May you trust God that you're exactly where you are meant to be. May you not forget the infinite possibilities that are born of faith. Those three steps, every coach that I know violates them. The law of attraction violates it. Because by saying, "I have X," and the reality is you don't, you are not accepting that you're exactly where God meant you to be. And if you don't accept that, then the first one is, "May today there be peace within." Well, no, that's violated as well. And so we get ourselves on the treadmill. May you not forget the infinite possibilities that are born of faith. Well, if you're trying to tell the universe what you want, and it's not what you need, the universe is probably going to go, "No."
Fascinating. Fascinating. Well, what are your perspective on all these teachings that we need to declare, demand, all of this? Even like, when I read Yogananda teachings, he talks about the difference between prayer as a beggar, where you like beg, versus prayer as a demand, right? But when I first read it, I was like, oh, Yogananda is calling it a demand. And he gives a context that first you awaken your devotional bhakti heart and you align yourself to that true sense of I am the child of the Great Spirit. So if I'm standing in that consciousness, I'm a child of the divine, then I demand my birthright. I demand what is rightfully mine. So my prayer is not a begging, but it's more like affirmative receiving, right? So just curious about your perspective on that.
In what way?
Well, when you're talking about accepting where you are at as this is the will of God for this moment, right? And then asking or declaring or demanding, like what's the most I would say authentic embodied way to engage with the universe from the place of humility and awareness, right? And at the same time, alignment.
Well, line 4 of the prayer says, may you take those gifts that you have received and pass on the love that has been given to you. Line 6 is, may you be content knowing you are a child of God.
Yeah.
And the final line is, let this presence settle into your bones and allow your soul the freedom to sing, dance, praise, and love. It is there for each and every one of us.
I need to memorize this prayer too. I would love to. I don't need to. I would love to.
It's a loop. It's literally a programmable loop, and you know, prayer shouldn't be a demand. I kind of agree with that. It's accepted. You know, we hear this. It's a conversation that's going on in my inner circles right now. Is what is abundance? Because there seems to be this thought that abundance is a thing. And if you don't have X, Y, Z, you're not abundant. We learn from the Buddhist monks, they don't have anything. And they are the most abundant beings I've ever met in my life. Miracles happened whilst they were here. Not pots of gold falling out of the sky, just an understanding of wisdom that I never thought. You know, these beings who I was talking, one of them, the second Geshe was his name was Tashi, and he taught me 2 mantras, and he could barely speak English. He walked for 24 days out of Tibet to get to safety in India. When you put that into the context of, I've got a really nice car, who truly is the more abundant? And that's the problem. And I think that's what the prayer is trying to say. And I don't, you know, I haven't read much Yogananda. It's probably what Yogananda was trying to say as well, is the conversation that in my opinion needs to that should be encouraged right now is what is abundance, because we have a very, very fake view of abundance. What is community? Well, community is common unity. That's what community means. How much unity that is common is within self-proclaimed communities throughout the world? Because we have haves and we have have-nots. And the haves are defining themselves in a way that is, I'm abundant, you're not. You're wrong. But if abundance is how many dollars you have in your bank, then quite honestly, I would say 98% of the world isn't abundant. Maybe 90%, I don't know what the number is. And it's getting worse. Therefore, perhaps the conversation, your listeners and you and me and everybody else, is what exactly is abundance? Because if we can't define what abundance is, we're wasting a lot of time talking about something that no one's got any clear idea of what they're aiming for. Water tells us what abundance is. Abundance is literally quantum. There is no measure of it, though. That's the point. Abundance is a state of mind. It's a state of being. It's a presence. Let this presence settle into your bones and allow your soul the freedom to sing, dance, praise, and love. So yeah, I think Jim Morrison says you cannot petition the Lord with prayer. In I think it's American Prayer or one of the Doors albums. I do feel that when we reach it, again, it's the fake narrative. It's I need someone over there in the sky to come in and save me, when in reality, you're water. You don't need saving. You just need to basically become what you are rather than what you think you need to be.
Become what you are. Immediately when I hear that, what I connect with is opening up your authentic, essential, unique self.
May you
Right?
take those gifts that you have received and pass on the love that has been given to you.
Oh my gosh, I love it so much. I love it so much, Paul, because it's so affirmative from my heart. What I always find the deep sense of nourishment, and I keep offering that message to my community, is that when we live in generosity, in warmth, when we share our energy, our presence, right? We come from that place of abundance. You know, like whenever I share anything online, like nobody is twisting my arm or forcing me to be on video, right? It comes as a natural impulse. Like,
Absolutely.
gosh, there is just so much pouring in every day, the topics, the inspiration, the insights, and I know it can uplift and support others. So, right? So what is left to do? Share your gifts, love, sing and dance. I love that. That feels really, really powerful.
It is. I did put it on YouTube for a while. I think it's the most important prayer ever because it's an executable, and one step cannot happen without the other. And that's the point. You can't get to may you take those gifts that you have received if you don't trust the infinite possibility of faith. And if you don't trust the infinite possibility of faith, then you can never be content that you're exactly where you're meant to be. And if you're not content where you're meant to be, then there'll never be peace within. And so we find ourselves on a survival loop. And is it an easy way to live? Absolutely not. But it's only not an easy way to live because the vast majority of people don't live that way. And so we are in the most incredible time. I've been around for a few decades at this point. This is the most exciting time that I can think of to be alive. And I've played in front of 50,000 people. I've done all the experiences that are supposed to be fantastic. And no, this is the moment. This is the time where humans finally, guys like me, and I'm not alone. Please don't think I'm alone. I do what I do, but there are lots of other people doing what I do. And we are on the shoulders of giants, just so you know. There are scientists over the last 100 years who have laid, making our life incredibly easy. Dinshaw, Schauberger, Tesla, Rife, these guys, they were working without the tools we have, and without their work, I wouldn't be here right now talking to you. And there are lots of people around the planet all doing exactly the same thing. for me, it seems that science has become a religion. And if science doesn't say yes, then we have been conditioned to say, well, it's not real. You know, when I grew up in Ireland, we were taught mythology as history. So maybe I've got an advantage, not as mythology, but as actual history. And so people go, oh, it can't be this easy. It can't be. It's only not this easy because we don't know how it works, and we'll never know how water works. But you know what? If we can understand just 0.1% of how water works, then it becomes easy. People should be so, you know, and I understand it's tough out there. It's tough for us. You know, we're in the middle of a huge demand on our time, and so, you know, everybody is experiencing the same problems, believe it or not. It's just a different magnitude in many respects. The point is, you know, we used to say, long ago I was in the city of London, and people always give up just before the final hurdle. And we always used to say, well, how do you know where the final hurdle is? And our managers used to say, you don't. And so, you know, for everyone who's hurting right now, yeah, let's be compassionate with each other, eh? How do we have common unity? Common unity is compassion.
Oh my gosh. This is the message that I've been receiving so clearly for the last 2 weeks, Paul. I've been receiving compassion. And wow, again, confirmation.
Here's something that we did learn from the monks. You know, when they ring their bells when they're saying their prayers, it's not on that because we asked them, what's the purpose of the bell? And I think it was Tashi again said, it represents compassion. And I was talking to oh gosh, it's a long word, scientist guy who deals with sound going into the universe. And it's infinite, he was saying. It turns into infrared and then it becomes a signal. And so now that when they're ringing that bell, they're actually sending compassion to all parts of the universe. Not empathy. They never once spoke about empathy. It was always compassion. Empathy, as I've said, is fake compassion.
Interesting. Yeah. And how would you describe compassion since we're here? I want to hear your perspective.
Well, compassion is empathy with action.
Empathy with action.
I think the definition of compassion is it's feeling another's pain with the desire to do something about it, and it's a compelling desire. Empathy is, I feel your pain, but I'm not going to do anything about it. It's a virtue signal in many respects. And you know, for me, compassion has become the center point of everything that we do, because it demands action. I wrote someone the other day and said this, it demands action. In our community, we talk about taking action, but the one area that we don't take action is when it comes to compassion. So the term that is used is, oh, I'm full of empathy. Great, you're not going to do anything then. Be full of compassion. And choose an area that you can be compassionate in. You know, it's, again, that week talking to the monks was just so life-changing for me in many respects, but it was affirming rather than changing. you can be empathetic towards these poor people in Ukraine right now, because there's not really a lot you can do. There really isn't. You know, I sent money over to rescue cats and dogs. That's about the limit of what I can do, quite frankly. I can't go over there and do anything. But you know what I can do? Is when a young man called me up the other day and said, and he was a client 3 years ago, Paul, I really need to speak to you. And he hasn't got any money. I can go, okay. You don't need to pay me. I'm taking my gifts that I've been given and passing on the love. I can do something in that moment. I can help. I can make a difference in somebody's life. That's true compassion.
Mm-hmm.
So who is it that you know that you can make a difference in? Not words. Words isn't different, but actually make a difference. Do something practical that will change that person or help alleviate the suffering. That's compassion, in my opinion.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Yeah, it's being the field of loving presence. When I am present, I am available. It's so powerful. I love that. Thank you. And then you're available for the universe to utilize you and your gifts in the moment.
Right. And that's the point.
That's the point.
It's the whole point is, if you are truly a quantum being, which I believe we all are, because we're water, we're 98.9% water, but you know, you can a person can choose to say that water isn't quantum. Okay, that's your point of view. I respect that. I happen to disagree with it, but that's your point of view. But for those who are listening to us talk right now and go, huh, yeah, that makes sense. Water is a quantum being. Then the quantum is abundance by its very nature, by its very definition. It's everything. That's what abundance is, in my opinion. Therefore, you are everything. So what is the spark that allows you to connect to everything? It's not empathy. It's not anger. It's not greed. It's not hate. The water rejects every single one of those every time. So what's left? Compassion. And maybe that, you know, is it that simple? I don't know. But you know what? I saw six beings who lived their life from a state of compassion. And I received more from them, not financially, than I could spend the rest of my life trying to buy.
Wow. So powerful. Thank you, Paul. We went a little bit over our hour. It's always a timeless experience having these quantum conversations, and then you ground very practical ways that we can make new choices and expand our awareness. And I love that you brought it all back to you are everything and you are abundance and you can be that. So thank you for encouraging new relationship with the quantum being, which is water. Thank you for sharing these evolutionary projects that you're involved in. I'm so excited to see what you're going to bring with advanced, it's called advanced sematics, right? Yeah. Advanced sematic. I looked it up. I did not know that word. I was like, what is that? So I'm so excited, all these powerful projects, and thank you so much for being here. Any final words before we close down this video?
It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Katerina, and the feedback from your audience last time was absolutely amazing. So thank you to each and every one of them. I read all of your comments, and it was a beautiful experience. So yeah, just thank you. It's I'm isolated up here and don't get out much. So it's really good to receive that feedback and to, understand that the calling of water for me is everything. I do not expect it to be everything for everybody else. That's not what I'm saying. But these little snippets of information, I have no idea what I've just said for the last hour, by the way. I am in a somnambulistic trance, I believe is what it's called. What I do know is there is information there that will help specific people, and for that opportunity, I am very, very grateful to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. To our next interview. I would
Okay.
not. I'm gonna plant the seed of intention right now.
Anytime you want, anytime you want.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We will be back.